Oh, it tells you now. How cool
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that?
Yeah, this is new.
Okay.
yeah, that's
So
something new.
It
Fran and
says I
Denise.
could leave the meeting if I don't want to be recorded.
You don't have much of a choice.
Right.
Eileen, do you have to authorize the recording, the person that sent it out? Or can you record any Zoom?
No, I don't believe, though we could try that sometime, that somebody else besides the host can record. I
Okay.
think there's, that's like a privacy like kind of thing.
Okay.
Because actually, I once tried, I didn't realize that's what I was doing with something from Golden Slipper, and it immediately showed up to the host that somebody was trying to record it, and I was cut off.
Oh my
So I guess
God.
that's the answer.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Because I wanted to record an exercise class that I could never make. Okay. You answered the question.
All right,
Damn, and I missed
Ann
the
and Denise,
discussion.
up to you.
Shall I
Um,
start now?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Pam Dick for anyone who doesn't know me, and my partner is Libby Weiss. I only see 4, 8, 12, 16 faces, so I'm sure there are more than 16 people here. So when I do ask a question, or Libby asks a question, and I can't see you, maybe Eileen, you'll call on people
That's fine.
for
I
us,
see you all.
for the people that I don't see. Okay, well, backtrack. I am back in Pennsylvania. We came back from Florida a couple of weeks ago, and I've been reading things to get prepared for the book. And I must say to you, several months ago, all I did was walk, in Florida. A lot of things were closed down, and a couple of people that I walked with had said to me, "Oh, you have to read Dear Edward. It's a wonderful book. It is about a plane crash, and it's really a very uplifting book. And you see how this boy grows and develops and moves on beyond this tragedy." And I'm thinking about it. And then my friend Marilyn Wilkes said, "Oh, you have to read it. It's wonderful, wonderful." So I said, "Okay, I'm going to read it." And I did recommend it. I didn't realize that in recommending it, I would be the one to talk about it. But I must say, I had not read it, but I took the opinions of two friends who have the same reading likes that I do. So I start reading the book and I'm saying, it's about this young boy. And then when the alternate chapters went on to do what's happening on the plane and what leads up to the crash and these developing all the characters on the plane, I said, "Oh my God, what did I bring to this group?" Everybody's in COVID, and you don't want to read about people dying. At the same time, I will tell you all something some people do know. As I'm starting to read it, my granddaughter was in a terrible accident. She was walking on the sidewalk with 5 sorority friends, and they were waiting for the light to cross. And one guy, very fast, flying down the street, rammed a car, spun around, and rammed into my granddaughter and the 5 girls. And her best friend died. So Lily she's coming along now. She was bruised and battered and had a clavicle break and things with her jaw, which all healed. She still sees a therapist, but so I'm living through the stress of my poor baby and how she's suffering because her friend died and others were much more injured. And to see the positiveness of people helping out and wanting to do things to make it better. So you had 3 moms that came and flew down to Florida, and there was a man, I guess it was a man, woman could be, paid anonymously when my daughter was checking out from the hotel. If 3 days of she stayed more, but the last 3 days, 3 moms and Adrian had their hotel paid for by an anonymous person. So there were good people around, the Chabad, the Hillel, everybody was bringing dinners, having time when you can be together and have some consolation and helping each other emotionally and physically. So, you know, you like to think that there are people in the world that are good who are always trying to help out. And so in a way, it does remind me of the book of this poor boy who lost his parents. I'm not going to go through the summary because I'm assuming that everybody's read the book. And so the question is, what does it mean not to survive, but to truly live? And I think that comes through in this book. Libby's going to now give you a little summary or background, you know, that she has found about the author. I do remember now, Helen Minsis was kind to send the videos about the author. I'm hoping some of you listen to it, but Libby will fill in a few things about her.
Thank you, Pam. Well, there's always an abundance of information about authors. This one came mainly in various autobiographical contributions. My job was to try to pare it down so that we spend more time talking about the book than we do about the author. She was born and raised in Ramsey, New Jersey, and went to school, to all public schools. And her biggest moment, I think, in childhood was the revelation that she loved writing. When she was in 4th grade, her teacher gave her the typical vocabulary list of spelling words and told the children to fit the words into sentences and perhaps put the sentences together. She adored doing this and realized that she got so lost in it that she was doing it for 45 minutes and didn't even realize how the time flew by. It was magical for her. And from then on, she continued with her love of writing. And also she was a voracious reader. She used to go to the library and the librarian knew how much she loved to read and lovingly gave her way more books than the allotted amount. I guess you could say her father continued with this theme. I think we'd all agree it was kind of to an excess when she went away to overnight camp and he sent her boxes and boxes of books. I think it was 100 books, but they weren't really all age appropriate. He just consulted and looked at lists that were books that were highly recommended and sent this child all of these books. But she loved to read. In 8th grade, she had a successful feeling when she wrote a play about Williamsburg and the teacher loved it. That was enough. That pat on the back really enabled her to move forward. But just as one teacher can pat you on the back, another teacher can slap you across the face, figuratively speaking. Don't get me wrong. But when she was in high school, she wanted to take an advanced placement English course. And she figured it was a slam dunk. But the teacher had the nerve to turn her down because she was too quiet and didn't contribute enough in class. Well, she viewed that as an injustice, and to this day harbors a lot of resentment and regret about that. Anne freely admits that she was always on the introverted side, very shy. And I'd like to read a quote. "I was incredibly shy as a young person and really felt like my voice didn't need to be heard. I wish I had been more willing to take up space in a room. I was too differential to people older and more powerful than me. And now that I'm older, I know that that's silly. None of us knows anything. And sometimes using my voice and point of view would have been of value to me, if to no one else. We all need to feel that we have value. Well, because of that negative experience with her, the teacher of that class, it made her want even more to take more courses in writing and in English. So she realized that in college, when you're signing up for classes, they really can't turn you down. She had a big disappointment, though. She was turned down to Wesley, and it was her first choice, but instead she went to Connecticut College, and she had a great experience. She raves about her excellent teachers. They loved her. And she especially adored her creative writing teacher. Well, she had some misfortune. In her junior year of college, she got Epstein-Barr syndrome. Here are her words. When I returned to college for what should have been my senior year, I was only able to take a half load of classes. And I was essentially there because if I'd stayed home on my parents' couch, I would have been terribly depressed, aside from being sick. So there I was in a dorm filled with 20-year-olds, but I felt 80, had very little energy and a compromised immune system. So I had to be very careful about how I moved through my days. I learned around my friends to take normalcy, to fake normalcy during that year. I would think, what normal 20-year-old, what would she do now? Laugh, ask a question, gossip? This sense of otherness helped me relate to Edward. I could understand in my booms that even though he was 12 years old when he moved in with his aunt and uncle, he was no longer a kid. He was something else entirely. Well, she went on to graduate school. She had to finish her degree at Rutgers, and she went on to graduate school. And I'll skip a little bit. She wasn't having much success writing books. She had written 2 books that didn't get published. So her father, like a typical parent, said, you need to find a career that'll pay. I think you should become a lawyer. But I think that inspired her and her determination to write, even more so to write. I'd like to skip ahead and tell you what her writing process is, because all authors have different ways. She writes, when I'm working on something, I wake up in the morning and don't let myself leave my apartment until I've written 3 pages. I find the first draft much easier than the rewriting process. When you were writing the first draft, nothing's wrong. You're simply making up a world, exploring it in what might be a very haphazard fashion. I don't write an outline. I figure the story out as I go along. E.L. Doctorow said that writing a novel is like driving your car on a foggy night. You can only see as far as the end of your headlights, but that's good enough to find your way home. Once I've reached the end of the novel, I finally have an inkling about what it's all about, and then I go back and rewrite it over and over again. The revising of a novel for me takes at least as long as writing the first draft. Now, every novelist needs an inspiration. Her inspiration was this. In 2010, there was a plane flying from South Africa to London. It crashed. Everyone was killed except one child survived. Sound familiar? It was a 10-year-old boy, and he suffered from a punctured lung and a broken leg. And she followed the story. She looked for every piece of information. It really engaged her. And I think this is what inspired her to write a story. She kept wondering whatever happened to that 10-year-old child that survived. So she wove her own story. And I think if we remember one thing about this book and about her purpose for writing, we have to remember that in order for Edward to come out of this whole experience, he needed really great, kind people all around him. I think Anne succeeded with this goal. She's currently working on a book about racism. It takes place in current time in Chicago. I'm sure that that will be very interesting. I don't know whether you all saw the information. It's usually in the cover of a book, but the book was published in 2020, and it has already won numerous awards, blah, 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 blah. The two books that she wrote besides Dear Edward, A Good Hard Look and Within Arm's Reach. Kind of curious to know what those are about, and I just might investigate. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, Pam, I think we're good to go.
Okay.
Pam,
Like
excuse
Libby
me.
said,
Yes,
Pam,
Bonnie
one
Cohen has,
second, because I'm
Oh.
going to forget. So I just wanted to address this right now. First of all, people are saying in the chat that they're sorry for what happened to your granddaughter and hope
Oh,
she
thank you.
continues to recover. And the other thing that I was asked in the chat is for the YouTube link. The YouTube link for all of our recordings is always in our newsletter. If anyone wants it, email me directly and I'll email you back. It's like tons of letters and I don't have it handy to put into the chat. But all of our meetings and book clubs are recorded and they are on YouTube. In all likelihood, if you put in Eileen Weinstein or perhaps Newtown Hadassah, you would get to it anyway. I'm not fluid enough with that to know. But again, if you want it, I will be happy to send it to you directly. So I'm sorry, Pam, go on.
that's okay. I don't see what's going on. Okay.
Bonnie
as-
Cohen, question. What was the name of the title of the new book that she wrote?
She's still writing it.
Oh,
So
okay,
she did not offer that.
okay.
There are
Thank you.
some authors that have a title and then by the time the book is finished and they're publishing it, the editor or the one who publishes it says, I don't think this title is good. I've read different books where the final title is so far removed from what the author has in mind. So those are always like a work in progress. And I must agree with Libby about how obsessed she became with that story about the South African accident. And when she started the book, she was thinking about her children who were little, and that began to open up concerns and worries and ideas. And that's, another thing, how the book evolved. And there are so many characters in the book because of the plane. And that's why Libby was kind enough to send out a little cheat sheet, because there's no way you could remember everybody's name and what role they played on the trip, whether they interacted with Edward and his family or not. But it was very handy to have. And that will be one of my questions. There are many characters on this flight. Did you, before we really get into Edward, did you relate to any of them? Did you have one that was a favorite? I'll give you an opportunity to talk about one character that sort of came to you and you say, oh, I like his personality, or I like what he did, or I didn't. So if Eileen would call on anybody that has any ideas about these, maybe, what do we have listed here? 50 characters.
Harriet, you have to unmute.
I thought that Florida was fun. The character of Florida with the bells on, that she'd lived several lives and that now she could be a mother to, and maybe even a grandmother she was projecting to the woman who found out she was pregnant that sat next to her on the plane. I thought she was amusing and entertaining, where a lot of the other characters, of course, were deeper and had more less fun connected to their
I'm going to mute Bonnie. Okay, I'm sorry. Go on.
so Florida was my she was entertaining and fun. But now that I heard more of the background of the writer, the author, I think to myself, the Epstein Barr was Eddie or Edward's crash. The Epstein Barr made her feel like she'd aged and probably felt out of touch with the other students. And maybe that's part of what she wove into his character.
That's a good thought.
Donna,
Donna.
you're muted. You're still muted.
Can't hear you.
Well, Donna's unmuting. Is there somebody else? Denise?
Okay, I'm ready if you are.
Okay, Donna and then.
Okay, go ahead, sure.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I'm on a different computer. Okay, first off, thank you so much for this list of all the different characters. That really helped. I got it after I was 3/4 of the way through the book, but it really helped a lot. And looking at the people, I guess I look at them in different ways, like the people on the plane, the family, and then the relationships of the people that knew the people that died in the crash. But looking at the people on the plane, I identified with Linda, the girl that was, I think she sat next to Florida, who you just had referred to. And she was taking the pregnancy test on the plane. Why she needed to do it on the plane, on that little tiny bathroom, who knows? But I kind of felt for that woman. Here she was expecting a whole new life, a whole new future. And then, of course, the crash happened. But I like Linda.
She could have been rushed and didn't have time to do it before the plane took off, or she was afraid to find out.
Yeah.
Denise?
Yes, I felt touched by the story of Benjamin Stillman, the black soldier injured. And I guess because he was just starting to come to terms with himself being gay. He was finally realizing this about himself. And you wonder what would have unfolded in his life had he survived.
Anyone else? Oh, Diana?
I also really felt for Linda. Mainly her backstory. She had been told she was worthless all her life, and she still felt that way. She still wasn't very confident about herself in relation to her boyfriend. And what really made it more meaningful is afterward we find out how much her boyfriend, Gary, really loved her and was prepared to propose to her right in the airport, and of course never got the chance. So I felt for Linda.
Okay, we'll go on. Edward
I think Nancy, excuse me, I think Nancy has her hand up.
Oh, I can't see, sorry.
Nancy, you're muted.
Top. Okay, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. It's kind of shallow, but I want to go along with I really kind of enjoyed Florida. I mean, there were other characters that I enjoyed too. I just liked her spirit, her attitude, her devil may care and handling of everything. And the fact that she went into past lives. And I thought it was just different than the run of the mill characters. So that's it. Thank you. Girls, you're doing a great job.
And I think by having Florida, it sort of takes a different, lighter vein, because this is such a heavy subject to read. As I say, I didn't know we were going to learn about the lives of all the people on the plane. Edward's story had captured the attention of everybody, and now he has nobody. He's struggling to find a place in a world without his family. Now, the important thing is, after the crash, his Aunt Lacey and Uncle John chose to take care of him. And he's wondering why, you know, and he really at one point says, are you taking care of me because you have to or you want to? And he's aware that they're not happy, a couple. And so the whole thing becomes awkward and dynamic. There's so much grief in the memories of all these loved ones. And then he realizes, oh, it is my mother's sister who has lost a sister. So he begins to realize that it's not only he who's suffering, but that begins, you know, his growth. Now, do you remember how do you feel about what Lacey and Uncle John are doing in helping him? Does it basically at the beginning help him or make things worse?
I don't think anything could have helped him in the beginning. And I think that they all ended up helping each other. One of my favorite characters actually was John, because he really, he's the one who did the research that spurred Edward's healing. And he stuck by Lacey. She was in a bad place, understandably, but in a
Yes.
bad place. Anybody else?
Helene?
At first, I think that Lacey wanting a child and having that whole room set up, Edward felt that he could not take the place of a lost child. And that's why he didn't want to go into that bedroom. And I think that was hard for Lacey, because here was a child that needed her, yet she was still in mourning for the child that she couldn't have. So
Right.
I think that's what sort of separated them. She wanted, yet didn't know how. And he felt like he was a visitor, intruding on her grief and on their family itself. I really felt sad for Edward in that situation. And I'm sorry that the husband didn't step up earlier in his development. It wasn't until later, like he was in his teens, that he found the stuff in the garage to let him know that the uncle was researching. And had he done that earlier, it might have helped his healing process earlier.
Maybe the uncle felt he wasn't old enough in his mind to take all this not new information, but all the information in the duffel bag.
Yeah,
Donna?
that's what he said, but I don't,
Right,
you know, I
you don't
think,
know.
yeah.
Lori and Fran both had their hands up.
And Donna did. Donna
So did
Spector.
Nancy. Okay. Lori, Fran, Donna, Nancy.
I was going to say the same thing. The fact that his aunt and uncle were not able to have, or did not have any children, and she had so many miscarriages, and the room, I think that bothered him. I think you also have to realize the uncle and aunt had never parented. And anybody that's a parent knows that life certainly changes and you get a different perspective of children. As a teacher, I know I became a better teacher as I was a parent, and saw how you lived with education too. That was basically what I wanted. I wanted to say, bring up the fact that I think that part of his problem was that he felt like he was an intrusion. And I don't
Yeah.
think that they ever wanted him to feel like an intrusion. It's just that they didn't know how to take this physically and mentally hurt child and make him well.
Yes, yes, I agree.
Fran?
I think they were all frozen in grief in that point of time. So there was no real appropriate reaction when you're grieving. You just do as you feel. And he was, what was he, about 11? And he wouldn't have gone into a nursery. The room was set up, not only was it a room for children who had not been born, but it was a nursery. And he couldn't do that. He just couldn't bring himself in any fashion to do that. But it seemed to me in the story that gradually they came together, which is probably realistic, as to what does happen.
And Nancy, did you want to say something?
Yeah. Oh, I think that it was a learning experience for all of them. They were in new territory. They didn't know what was happening, and they were doing the best they could. But I think the part with the room, Eddie was used to sleeping with Jordan, and he missed his brother more than anybody else, even more than his parents. And I think that's why he didn't want to be in that room and didn't want to be alone. And he found a safety with Shay, and I forget her mother's name, with them over there. And he just had her to sleep with, to be another body in that room. That's all. Oh, and I have one question that someone could answer later, maybe. Was Mark a stockbroker or a writer?
He was a writer.
Was he? That's what it says here. I thought, okay, thank you. I don't know where I got.
Wait,
Libby?
yeah, I think he was in the financial world, but he wrote about what he did in the financial world.
Okay, thank you. I totally missed that part.
I think it was me. I think I read between the lines.
Yeah, it says here Mark Lazio was a
Okay.
successful business person
Yeah,
in his 30s, heading to LA to close an important deal.
yeah,
That's the flirter one.
yeah.
That's where I got broke. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Donna, and then Sheila had her hand up also.
Okay, so just wanted to address a couple things. Eddie realized that his aunt lost his sister. He lost her sister. And there's a lot of times when she was wearing his mother's clothes, which was enticing in a way. And regarding the room, it was interesting because the parents, the husband and wife, they were having issues, and he was ending up sleeping in that room that was meant to be for the baby and then later for Eddie. But the father slept in that room. And as the book progressed, later in the book, they talk about them changing that room back they changed it into something different, implying that the husband and wife were now back in the same room. And I just saw the growth of their relationship. And I thought that was an interesting point.
Thank you. Okay, a lot of people have their hand up. So Sheila, you were next, and then Fran has her hand up, and who else does? Sue?
Libby and Harriet.
Okay.
I think that that Lacey and John were simply trying to protect him in every way that they knew how. So, their behavior was simply to do what they could to make things nice for him. And he, in his way, was trying to protect them. So he didn't want to intrude or impose himself into that baby room. He didn't feel like he could do that. That was not how he saw his place. And his connection with Shay was the closest he could come to a connection to his brother. So they could connect on a peer level. Whereas, and Shay certainly didn't worry about protecting him. She was the one who could be the most honest with him.
Yeah.
Lacey and John really didn't feel comfortable about getting to the core of the issues, whereas Shay just said it the way it was, and he could connect with her the best, as he might have with his own brother.
Fran?
The room, I think, was symbolic of loss for each and every one of them. And they each were trying to deal with it in their own way. And the best thing that could have happened was when they changed the room to something else. And it probably symbolized progression in their adjustment to it. And also last night, I listened to one of the interviews with Ann Napolitano. I can't pronounce it, Ann Napolitano. She was very interesting. She said she observed the relationship between her two young children and the closeness. Because she said in her writing, what she loved about writing was she could put little aspects of her life in.
Yeah.
And she wrote the Eddie character and the Jordan character because she wanted to show the closeness, the bond between siblings, which did turn out to be stronger than the bond between Eddie and his parents, simply because you do grow and leave your parents. Your siblings are there for the bulk of your life. And that was part of the reaction and why he felt better when he was wearing his brother's clothes and things of that sort. And he needed Shay because he needed, as we said a few times, he needed somebody his age. That's how that started.
Right.
All right, I know Sue had her hand up, and I see Andrea and Harriet and Libby in any order. Chime in.
I didn't, having a daughter that's a therapist, I believe that they were not prepared for the whole situation. It was an act of God that nobody could be prepared for, that I feel and believe that they should have immediately gone into therapy, including Eddie. I mean, I believe that they needed, I don't think in a situation like that with such raw emotions that you're able to deal on your own. You need an outside perspective, and you need somebody that can hear your feelings and your thoughts and help guide you through this. And I believe in the beginning they should have gone to therapy, not even a support group, because their situation was so unique, but there are grievance counselors that they should have gone to. That's my opinion.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Mm-hmm.
Andrea, you had your hand up. You got to unmute.
All right, do you hear me now? Terrific. All right, I'm curious about one thing. Maybe I misconstrued it or missed it. Wasn't there a blog about him when he crashed? The little, right, that his uncle was controlling?
I think so.
So why would he do that?
The uncle controlled the blog?
Yeah, like why would he even have one? Like Eddie, like when he said that he there was a whole thing about him like when he was in the hospital, and it was put out there, and he said, I didn't write any. So Eddie said, I didn't write any of this.
I don't know that it was the uncle. Does anybody want to comment on that? Helene?
Does anybody remember?
It wasn't the uncle that started it.
Who started it?
I think it was just out there about people that lost family members, lost people on the plane crash, and they put the blog together, the Nebulous Day, and then people were logging in. But didn't Shay also connect into it?
Right, but why would they say that he said things? Like he was unconscious, and not unconscious, but he didn't say anything. And they were.
Oh, you mean Eddie? You mean Eddie?
Yes.
I'm not sure that he knew about it.
No, the
Eddie didn't know about the blog until Shay told him about it when he was like 14.
No, he
later
was,
on.
he found it. He found it when he was looking through his uncle's things.
What he had said was that there was he now doesn't remember people taking pictures of him, but there was a picture of him with an iPad in his hands when he had the thing wrapped around, the bandage wrapped around his head. And he said, but he doesn't recall writing any of that.
Right. But he said that, but what I'm saying is that he found it. He found all of that when he was looking through his uncle's things.
Yes, that's what triggered the thought about it again, but he
Right. So his
remember.
uncle knew about it.
So
And
is your point that the
stop
uncle should have not commented on it?
What I'm saying is that the uncle didn't stop it. So you're saying that the uncle protected him, but that whole thing wasn't stopped.
But he did put in like all kinds of codes, like numbers. If you remember, like 3/4 of the way through the book, it said that it was harder to get into, to get that information. It was just a brief thing that it said that he coded it so that nobody could just quickly go into it. It wouldn't say like Eddie Survivor or something like that. It would say like 1, 2, 3, 10, 5, something as an example. Yeah, so he did protect him, but we don't really know if that was Eddie's response with an iPad in the beginning or whether it was.
It was his uncle that started it. That's what Shay said.
Well, that's what he thought.
Right.
I'm not sure he knows it.
Right.
You know, it's the same thing like when Princess Diana died. You had all these headlines, and that's what the author indicates as headlines. You know, this miracle boy survived, and the whole United States and beyond begin to participate in wanting to know how he survived, the same way they want to know how Harry and William survived. You know, people in a certain way are voyeurs, but in other ways, they just feel for the survived child and want to hear good things that he's growing. So there's different kinds. Did you want to go on? I do feel that.
I think Libby wanted to say something first.
Okay, and then I'll go on to Shay, because she is an integral part of the plot.
I just have a thought before we get too much further into the book. Why do you think Anna Napolitano chose to make the Adler family Jewish? She's Catholic. What do you think her reason was? Do you think that there was any point to that? Did it change the story in any way?
Could it be that Jews like to read books?
We do. You know,
and they're teachers who care about the education of their children.
But why did she say, you know, that they were a Jewish family and gave them a Jewish name?
I don't have a clue. But I do know that they celebrated all the holidays, so maybe she was trying to be universal. I don't know. Helene, did you have a thought?
Well, I was surprised because in this story, it wasn't, they didn't have any visits from the rabbi in the community where the family lived. There were no organizations, Jewish organizations coming forth to embrace this family that had gone through tragedy. And this is typically something that we see in our religion.
Could it have been because in Catholicism, they sort of welcome God and you go to Jesus, and that's wonderful. Where in Judaism, death is a nebulous thing. You know, there is no heaven, there's no hell, there's just death. So maybe she didn't want to deal with the, you know, like, and go back to Florida, having the many lives. I almost think that it maybe just they didn't want to delve on, oh, well, just forget about this, you know, and move on kind of a thing, where in Judaism, you nourish the family and the community gets you together, even though it wasn't a Jewish family and a Jewish, you know, Shay nurtured him And the uncle, in the way, also helped build him whole again. I don't know. Because I didn't even realize that they were a Jewish family until you mentioned it. But I just thought I know about, Catholicism and born again. It's okay to die. That's something to look forward to.
It's not, though, that we don't believe in an afterlife, because we do. You need to delve into that. And
Yes,
also,
and there is a heaven.
and there
We
is.
believe in
Well,
heaven.
We're just waiting for the Messiah.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Dottie, you had your hand up?
Yes, because I think as Jews, we have to remember all the Jewish children that were taken away from their parents. Sometimes their parents placed them with Catholic people or other righteous Gentiles to raise them, and who knows what happened to them. They may have witnessed their parents in front of a firing squad, or being burned to death in a barn, or being taken away on a train. So many different scenarios, so many children separated, living with other people. And of course, after the war, a lot of them were placed with, somehow they connected without computers. They connected them to families that survived, maybe people in the United States. That's one group, a huge group, and kids that were in the Kindersport, that were sent to Switzerland, that were sent to English. Those are Jews. Now, the other thing is London, during the bombings, during World War II, the children in a very organized fashion were sent to the countryside in the UK to live with strangers. Somehow they survived. It was a miracle. I have relatives. I have a cousin that was sent to Switzerland. Her mother was taken away. Dr. Ruth, the same thing. Her parents put her on a train. She never saw them before. She lived in Switzerland. Children can survive. They're a lot more resilient than we think. Yes, I'm sure there are a lot of kids that needed a lot of counseling and all, but you have to remember that most of the kids, somehow they survived.
Hey, thank you, Dottie. Pam, you want to go on?
With people helping, they survived, and they were given love and a sense of family. Because as we said a few minutes ago, that Aunt Lacey and Uncle John were not in that mindset. They loved him, they wanted to help him, but because of what someone said, there was no counseling for them. Yes, Dr. Mike was Edward's therapist, but it didn't continue long into. My granddaughter still seeing someone to help through the deals. It's not a 4-week, she finished her PT in 8 weeks and that's finished. But when you need to talk to somebody, you have to continue. It's not like a certain form where okay, 4 weeks are up, you're finished, you're gone. The one who was almost like a therapist to him was Shay, and I wanted to talk about her now because he does live and ends up sleeping on her floor for a long time. And I wrote down this quote, which I thought was really good. Shay feels like oxygen to him, an atmosphere of clarity that the fractured boy needed to rebuild his life. And she was a different kind of a person. I don't think she got along with the people in the school as well as others may have. She was an independent soul, and it didn't matter to Edward that they were of a different nationality, ethnic, I should say, but she had what he needed. He needed the comfort of sleeping in the same room. She had made comments to him which helped him to move on. That was why, as someone said, he lost his brother, so it led him to Shay because of his deep loneliness. I mean, having the aunt do the soap operas with him and hover over him about the food, and the uncle hiding in the garage taking care of this other stuff. There was something missing. He needed somebody his own age. So anyone want to talk about Shay? Diana? And then Denise?
And Margie had her hand up too.
Okay, Margie too. I can't see that.
Shay was very blunt, told it like it is, as you said. This is why she didn't have all that many friends. Edward needed that. Someone who didn't treat him like glass, who was able to treat him as a regular human being, and that was very helpful to him.
That's approximately what I was going to say, that Shay never treated him as a curiosity where so many other people did. I mean, she just related to him as friends, as two young teenagers, and he really needed that.
My turn?
Yep.
I was always thinking, why was he so close to Shay? And why didn't she have a lot of friends in school? And my thinking is, and I certainly don't know, they probably lived in a community that was mostly, if not almost exclusively Caucasian. And here she is Hispanic, and the kids may have not accepted her. So she understands somebody who was in need of help and was different, because she was lonely and she needed somebody in her life. So they helped each other, I think.
You know, she was also very outgoing in her thoughts to him. You know, like she said to him, which I would have never said to someone, well, the worst thing has happened to you. Your parents are dead. Nothing worse can happen to you now. So now you can move on. And, you know, she talked to him with different kinds of, you know, sentences and help, you know, which in the long-term scheme of things did help him, but she was very blunt. Did someone else want to say something? Helene?
Maybe you can ask me, one of my questions were, I was surprised that Shay's mother allowed him to sleep on the floor. I know once she reached puberty, she kicked him out because she was afraid that they would be intimate. However, that is the only thing that was unrealistic for me in the book, that the neighbor allowed him to sleep in her daughter's room. I thought that was a little strange. I don't know if anybody else felt that way.
Yeah. Yes.
I didn't. I must be very weird, but
I don't think
thought they were, I don't know, the mother, what was her name? Becca?
Essa.
That she was like a real helper kind of person, and that until she had to worry about her daughter maybe getting pregnant, that it was fine. She had her limits.
Yeah.
She questioned him at one point when they were in the garage together all the time. But I thought it kind of fit in with her personality. And Shay, I also thought needed some psychological help, because it's not normal to grow up through your teen years like that. So I kind of felt badly for her.
I found it strange that he was sleeping in her room for, I think I just read someplace, they said 2 years. That's an awfully long time.
Yeah. You would think that the aunt and uncle would have intervened after,
Right, yeah.
you know, several months, but Zuckerman, I don't know your first name.
Oh, Bonnie, okay.
Bonnie.
Okay. Shay had a lot of issues though. Remember all the plans she had about running away?
Yes.
And you know, she said, oh, I never was going to do it, but she was almost like his rock, Edward's rock though. But, you know, just many issues that she did have. And her relationship with her mother wasn't the greatest either.
Yeah. I think she took the place of Jordan.
Mhm.
She became his replacement sibling.
She was
And-
hysterical. Jordan.
Yeah. And because Anne Napolitano was shy and introverted, I think she likened Shay that way. That Shay was sort of like a misfit. She didn't have a lot of friends. She kept to herself. So she didn't challenge Edward as much. And I think Edward felt comfortable with her. She wasn't pampering him. How can I make you comfortable? What can I do? She just jumped into the Harry
Right.
Potter
She wasn't
books.
hovering.
Yeah, she jumped into those Harry Potter books, and that reminded Edward of the wonderful times he had with his brother and the Harry Potter books.
Right.
Ladies, I have to leave. I have a Religious Action Committee meeting. I just want to say thank you.
Who was
to-
this talking?
And
Oh,
Susan.
Sue. I had to flip my screen.
And I give the book an 8. So thank you. I'll
Thank
catch
you,
the
Sue.
recording.
Okay.
Have fun.
Thank you. Now, there are other people in the role of helper in the school. Would someone like to talk about that? You know, there's the school principal, Dr. Arunde, and you had the gym teacher, Mrs. Tuhane. They were really providing counseling without being counselors, and they each helped him. Would someone like to say anything about that? And then I'll take over again. Audrey?
Principal realized that he needed a place to go. He couldn't be at recess with the others. He couldn't eat lunch. So he took him on to help with his ferns. And I think by giving him the chance to take care of the plants, it put Edward in charge of something. He was now being a caregiver, which he needed. Rather than just being taken care of, now he was taking care of the plants. And I think that was really important.
Yeah, his books and the plants, I think, really saved him. Diana?
He couldn't save his family, but he could save the plants.
And the gym teacher, I thought was good because she let him, in a very sneakily way, get involved with the weightlifting because she thought, you know, he needed that to help his body because he had lost weight and he looked so fragile. But it also gave him, I think she thought, a sense of having some power and some outward physical esteem. And she didn't make him do all the things with the other students where I think he would have really frozen and shied back. We have to realize that this is a child who has grown up being homeschooled. You know, he didn't know immediately how to react with the children because he was filled with his trauma in his brain. So I think the two of them did an excellent job by putting him in the right place at the right time.
Bonnie Zuckerman had her hand up.
Okay, I was going to say pretty much the same, that when he objected so much to being in the gym class, the principal and the gym teacher, you know, came up with that idea about the weightlifting, and it was just a really great solution, you know, for Edward.
Diane
Why-
has her hand up.
Well, they took him out of the gym class because he took the basketball and threw it at a very kind little female classmate. My question is why, I wasn't quite clear why he slammed that classmate with the basketball in class.
I think it was an accident.
Yes.
It was an accident.
Just all the noise. All the
Hear
noise.
you, Harriet.
All the noise made him disoriented, and the clamoring and everything. That's what he couldn't handle, the sensory reaction that he had.
Yes, he had that buzzing or that loud noise, which as he, you know, began to be cured of all this anguish to a certain degree, the buzzing and the loud noise began to disappear in his ears. Any other comments on this area before I move on? Okay, I thought maybe we'd move on now to the money aspect. Well, the money that the people were going to get, the person who was sending him money, and the letters that all the parents or siblings had written to Edward, which he didn't see till he was older. Do you think that some of the letters were inappropriate in terms of what they wanted from him? Anyone want to take that for a moment? You know, some of the letters say, oh, I don't remember who it was supposed to be an artist, was supposed to be a teacher, you know, therefore travel a lot. Therefore, we would like you to do these things. It's like you're reincarnating these lost people that he was with maybe for 5 minutes or a couple of hours in the plane, and he should now assume the role
Elaine
of
has
doing
her
their
hand up.
things. Elaine?
I thought that they were all inappropriate. I mean, why would they think this a child? And as far as they knew, he was a child when they wrote these letters, because he was still, it was just right after the accident, so he was only 12 years old, should take on the responsibility. And he didn't even know some of these, I mean, he knew none of the passengers. So to me, that was really asking a lot, somebody to ask a lot of someone else to do something like that. And yes, I thought that as I was reading it, I could not believe that people were sending him letters and asking him of things like that. And I have a feeling that if his uncle had ever opened the letters and actually read them, he might have gotten rid of them.
Donna?
I thought it was very organized how Shay and Edward went through the different letters. I think they had a big spreadsheet and they organized who said what. And they were able to answer some of the letters, which probably was therapeutic for both Shay and Eddie. And those things, those requests that the people had of him, which was, you know, outrageous, like become an artist or become a whatever, they decided to ignore. So I think that they handled that very well. Maybe the author handled that very well, because I don't know if teens could really do that, but I liked how that was portrayed.
Margie has her hand up.
See, I agree more with Donna. I mean, yes, the letters were not appropriate, but I think Eddie and Shay realized it, and Eddie in particular, there were other people that were hurting. He finally realized he wasn't the only one that was hurting from this accident. And that gave him a purpose to try to help these people also. And I think that was a big part of his recovery, to realize he was not the only one hurting. There were all the families and relatives of these people. He was so focused on himself, and now there are other people he could focus on, which was good for him, I think.
Denise?
The one false note I thought the book had was when Mark Lassio's brother sends Edward the check for the $7 million. I mean, I get that he was a free spirit and, you know, he didn't feel the need for the money, et cetera, but it just, I don't know, it just seemed far-fetched to me. Yeah, I mean, even if you're not into material things, wouldn't you take the money and give it to where you wanted it to go? You know, so that was a false note for me.
I thought many of the letters were a false note. I understand that the author used it as a way to have Eddie recover. But I sure as hell hope that people would not write those kind of letters to someone who just lost his family. Diana, you're nodding?
I feel that they were full of anguish as well, and they weren't thinking about Eddie and about his age. They were just relieving themselves of their feelings. And of course it was inappropriate, but I could see it being done.
Harriet?
Pain is not always appropriate. Whatever people are feeling, they're trying to rid themselves of it or heal themselves. And they do all kinds of things, write letters sometimes, maybe journal, maybe they start groups, you know, to help people heal. I mean, there are all kinds of gestures. Some are inappropriate and some are productive. But in this way, indirectly, it wasn't meant to really heal him. It was to heal them by writing it. But I think it did heal him. It did help him on his path.
Fran?
He represented something because he was the sole survivor of a plane crash, which in and of itself is an unbelievable miracle. So he probably became symbolic to them and gave him them a feeling that he had some unusual power or whatever. And it was, they could relieve their grief and their anxiety by writing and communicating to him. So he served a purpose for them in their healing, I think. And what was just said was very good, you know.
Donna?
I see like tons of hands. I don't know about you, Pam, but I see Lori.
I only see Donna, so you
Okay, I
call.
see Lori
And Bonnie.
Donna, Bonnie.
I just want to follow Francine with the follow-up. And well, I think one of the most pertinent lines out of the whole book was when he went to see that tarot card person, the psychic that Shay was going, I think Shay was going there. And when that psychic said, as he's leaving, it was dumb luck. It was just random that you survived. And to me, that was one of the finest lines of the book because it purely was random.
So much in life is dumb luck. You know, you oh, they're brilliant, they're this or that, and it's just plain dumb luck or
Yeah.
being in the right place at the right time.
Thank
You know, originally, Libby and I were thinking, what was her motive? Was she going to have him come
Yes.
back and, you know, get money out of him, you know, because she and I are not high on fortune tellers, so to speak. But we do agree with that final statement that she said.
That's
Next.
right. Yeah, you are so right. You are so right. I was saying to Pam, this is not believable. You know, first of all, you assume that here's this unknown woman who sees a pigeon, some child that apparently doesn't have any guidance, who has come into a tremendous amount of money. I said to Pam, I pictured her having him come for seances where he would get to be in the company of his parents and his brother. And she'd say, okay, that will be $100, please. See you next week. And that she'd keep soaking him and soaking him. And when she said, I wrote this down, it just really, really hit the target. She said, take stock of who you are, what you have, and use it for good. You weren't chosen for anything, just dumb luck. So that lifted the weight after, you know, from him, it lifted it. And so she turned out to be a good, kind person, which contributes to the author's theme that we move on to a more meaningful life when we are surrounded by the kindness of others. So from this unexpected source, we had all of this kindness.
Lori keeps trying. Go for it, Lori.
Okay. I don't know if you remember, but when they found the bags of letters and they were locked, the way to unlock them was the flight number. And to me, that seemed very symbolic that this was going to unlock a lot of the feelings. And the way they handled the letters after they got through, I mean, Shay thought some of them were too much for him. She answered most of them, only gave some of them to Edward. I thought it opened up things for him. It helped him recover the letters.
Yes, definitely.
I thought that it was a very interesting way to handle that and to see how other people from the flight's relatives also handled their losses.
Bonnie and Margie had their hands up.
I agree that the letters were very therapeutic, you know, for Edward. The thing I can't understand, I don't know if I had a family member that was lost on that flight, if I would be writing a letter to the only survivor though. I mean, that's something I just couldn't understand. I just couldn't get my head around that. But I think the letters were very valuable and they were very therapeutic. Personally, I don't think I would have written a letter. I would try to cope in other ways.
Yep, I hear you. Margie,
Right.
do you want to add?
Okay. Getting back to this author, she is Catholic. Has somebody figured out that she is definitely Catholic?
Yes, she is.
Did she marry a Jewish person? Did she have close Jewish friends? Somehow she knows some stuff about Judaism. I'm just wondering if her husband or somebody is Jewish, because it seems like to me she has a lot of my value system as a Reformed Jewish person. It's not a lot of the rituals and traditions, but it's tikkun olam, giving back, being kind to people. And I think with that money that he got, you know, he's going to help other people out. And I think that's just a wonderful thing, because he's coming into his own person. These people have helped him. He's going to help the people that were important to him, that helped him with his recovery. He's going to get Maria, whatever her name is, Jordan's lover, is going to give her a college education. And Shay, I just think it's beautiful. I don't know if it's realistic, but I think it's beautiful.
Mm. He's even helping out the principal.
Yeah, right. You know, all these people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's bright, you know, he's brighter beyond his years to be able to do that, but he has had time to digest who he is, who his family was, and this is what he wants to do with the rest of his life, and he feels good about it. First time he's felt good about surviving.
How is he wise enough to know to do it anonymously? That's a very mature thought.
I don't know. Well, maybe she got that from going to law school. Did she go to law school, the author? I don't know.
Well, that is the height of
Jewish
charity in the Jewish religion. Giving anonymously is the height of charity.
Yeah,
But he wouldn't have known that. I don't think.
Well, one doesn't know what.
I think it was beautiful that he wanted to give all the money to the education to his friends and his family and the principal. But I'm also thinking about his age. If he would have been 30 and if he would have had that kind of money, would he have still been that philanthropic? I hope so. But, you know, as a teenager, you're kind of indispensable and maybe a little reckless. And he didn't understand the concept of money. I think it's beautiful. I'm glad that he did it. But would he have done it if he was 20 years older to that level? I hope so.
Well, there was a lot of money to dispose, like somebody just won a lottery in Levittown. I
Yeah.
forget what the number was,
$500 million.
516 million. I said, what are they going to do with that money? I would hope that they would do something philanthropic to the people in Levittown who were needy, who they come into contact with, or do something for the community, because it's a hell of a lot of money. The one thing I wanted to mention too, we didn't cover that character that was mentioned a minute ago, Jordan's lover, Mahira. You know, why did he go to visit her? And what was the outcome of that? That I thought was very interesting. He dresses up like Jordan. So why do you think he went?
He wants to contact with his brother. He wants to
Right.
somehow connect. That's the same thing as the letters. I see those people are trying to connect with the last person that possibly saw their relatives that have passed, you know. So I don't, you know, the huge number of letters kind of is overwhelming. And the author did say that there was a plane crash. She got the idea from a plane crash at which there was one surviving young boy somewhere around the same age. But I can see the people just trying to make contact. Did you see my person? What did they say? You know, how were they?
I wanted to say that I had a doctor's appointment at Penn. And while I was at Penn, I went to see my aunt who was in the hospital. And when I came home that day, my mother informed me that my aunt had passed. And I was the last person to see her before she passed. And I think that created a special bond between my cousin and myself, because I was the last person to see his mother before she passed. So that's just a follow-up.
I also wanted to share something. My cousin, my first cousin's son was in a plane crash 10 years ago. He was 19 and he flew up to Buffalo to see his girlfriend for Valentine's Day. And and he crashed and he died in that flight. There was about 25 people on board. It was a national event. And then this discussion is just, and the book is reminding me of that. That's it.
Very sad.
I think I covered most
Oh,
of.
can I say something about?
Yes.
Okay, about Eddie going to see Mahira. Isn't he like 15 at this point, 2 years later, which is the age that Eddie was when he was killed in the accident? He wanted, and he found out that that Jordan had this girlfriend. He was just curious as to what it's like to have a girlfriend, because I don't think he considered Shay a girlfriend. He just considered Shay a friend until later in the book. He just wanted to go find out about who this girl was and who was Jordan's girlfriend. And then when Mahira said, that she went to this fortune teller and he went, and that helped him also on his road to recovery. I think some of this is far-fetched, but I thought it was a very interesting book.
It's fiction.
Yeah.
I also thought, I think calling her a lover was a bit much.
On the tarot reader card lady, do you believe that A, did she have any powers, and or B, did she just realize that she was going to be kind at the end and not take his money? I almost felt first that she had not any powers, that she was a charlatan. But then when they were talking, I felt like she did have some power, and she did get that message to give to him. So I don't know. What was your opinion on that?
I think she had the power of observation.
See, I totally believe in that. So,
Sorry.
and years ago, God, my word chapter, years and years ago, we had a psychic come, and she didn't charge. And I think that that's the issue. I think people that really have power don't charge.
Right.
And told me things about my own grandmother, who I had never met, but I only had seen through pictures. Things about messages from her to my father that, I mean, totally were so on target at that time. So I do have faith in that. And I think that, guys, excuse me, in my own house, excuse me, but I'm one. So I thought she was wonderful for him. I thought she really did a good job. But I wanted to go back to one other thing too. This was a totally asexual book. I think that calling Jordan's girlfriend a lover, all they ever did was kiss. And it totally blew my mind at the end that Shay had been with Edward for all these years and they had separate rooms. So that was two really totally unrealistic things to me about the book. Not of great significance, but got to me.
Maybe because the author was such an introvert, who knows, how, close she was to fellas, or just was writing and doing her studies. She was sick, so maybe it's a little bit part of her personality that she incorporates into the fiction of the book. Diana?
Back to the fortune teller. When do you think the fortune teller knew who Eddie was? Because he didn't say. She said to him something like, I think you look familiar. I'd like to know your thoughts about, did she know who he was, etc. Let's hear it.
Libby?
Well, do you want to have some fun and put some fantasy into this? Well, how about this as being far-fetched and a little odd? Do you remember how helpful Florida was to Linda? Mm-hmm. And how she mused that she would devote herself to making life better for Linda and her child? And she thought about how much joy it gave her to help people. Well, follow me one big leap. Do you think she was reincarnated and came back?
Didn't she have bells, the second lady?
Yeah,
that's what we noticed when we talked.
Yes.
And she read tarot cards.
Yes. See, this is, your mind can really zoom off. And I was thinking maybe it was her giving a message. It was just some luck. Use your life for good. Give it meaning. Time to move on. So
that's why I brought in Florida when I said it initially.
Yeah,
that was exactly where I was going. I thought of it.
I know. I was shaking my head with you.
Yeah.
You know what? It's like when I watch things on TV that don't completely make sense, my husband will say, Libby, it's TV. So when I was reading this story and I had that thought, I thought, okay, well, before TV, there was the written story that was made into the TV show. So it's just go with it.
I like that. That's cool.
Also,
I don't
to
have it
answer
lined
your
up.
question, Eileen, I thought it was great that they didn't have sex, but they had love, caring, and compassion for each other, and a soul connection. And I think that's the motto of the book, as opposed to, sexuality. Doesn't necessarily have to have those other, feelings involved.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, it's with Florida and the tarot card lady, that's like almost a bohemian kind of a feel, kind of an out there kind of a feel. So
yes,
maybe she was the grandmother who was reincarnated, but just that style of person maybe came through twice. I wanted to also mention that the author at one point wrote towards the end of the book that Edward was looking at how would he know that Shay would give birth to their children in 10 years from now. So I thought that was interesting because that meant that he ended up marrying her, which is interesting because at one point she was almost like a sister, but the author took it to that level. And I thought that was an interesting forecast of what was going to happen in that relationship.
That's what I wanted to bring up next on what you thought about how it's wrapped up in a bow, how the story ends and what you thought of it. Libby?
Yeah, I agree. But one loose part of that bow that bothered me, I think that Edward should have given his aunt and uncle some of the money. I mean, other people received money and financial considerations. Do you think that he should have done something for them?
Yeah, definitely. Because she also lost a sister.
Right, but he also got a huge amount of money from the airline, and he lives with them. So I kind of just assumed that they would share. But maybe that's what I wanted to think.
Yeah, well, there was no mention, so I was wondering.
Laurie?
I think there's too much being made about the money. I am sure that the aunt and uncle were responsible people. I'm sure that he had financial advisors to advise them. I'm sure that the aunt and uncle were playing, that they were, compensated in some way for it, and that he took care of them. That, I don't think we should get hung up with money. It's
Or
not
put it in trust because he's still a minor.
right. That there are certain laws that have to be followed, and the place to talk about the legal ramifications of a minor having large amounts of money is not an appropriate place for it to come up in a fictional story.
Well, especially in this one where you're showing some growth and development and becoming less depressed and having a more meaningful life and moving on. It's a book of hope, and I think she does achieve that goal. Hope and moving back into the real world and making a special place for yourself, which I think he did.
Elaine wanted to say something, and then a lot of people are leaving because they have appointments. So
Right, so we'll
I see, and then I think we should rate it. People who have left have gone from a 5 to an 8. Just passing that on. Various appointments. Everyone loved the discussion. So Elaine and then Denise.
Okay, talking about the money, it's possible that the aunt and uncle did get some of that money because they had to take care of his medical bills. So we don't know if they had gotten any or not. And as far as the money goes, it had to be put in a trust because he was a minor. My grandson, my youngest grandson, had an accident when he was 5 years old. That money is still sitting in a trust fund for him that he cannot touch, or my daughter cannot touch. until he is not a minor anymore. I don't know if it's 18 or 21, but that's when he's allowed to touch that money. So the law, there are certain laws that you have to follow in order, once you get money when it's a minor.
That's true. So Eileen, do you want to call on people to give a final thought, or and if they want to give a number on the book?
You're muted.
Denise?
I'm muted again. I'm sorry. There's a lot of noise here all of a sudden. What I said was yes. Denise, why don't you start by rating it and then go?
Oh, okay. I had a comment about the ending, but I can incorporate that into the rating. I was glad it ended the way it did. It would have been just too unrelieved otherwise, unrelieved dismalness. But, it showed you how Edward realizes that his brother's loss will always be there, but he is moving on. He is building a life for himself. And I would give the book an 8.5 or 9. There were a few false steps, but I thought it was a beautiful portrait of this horrible event that happened, and also showing the stages of grief that Edward goes through, and then also the stages of growth. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to start at the top, but I am also going to point out Iris just left. She gave it a 4. She was not a fan of the book.
Oh, boy.
Absolutely her choice. And the others, as I said, were a 5 and 8, and like they're around. So Bonnie Zuckerman, you're first.
I gave it a 9. I really liked the book. When I was telling people I was reading this book, they said, "Oh, that sounds awful." But no, I said it was very well written. I thought it was very good. I liked the way that it ended, and especially what happened with the paramedic. How he found Edward. It kind of, just tied the strings together. But I thought it was very well written, and I would give it a 9.
Okay, thank you, Sheila.
I would give it an 8. I really enjoyed the book and I loved the interaction between Edward and Shay. That was a highlight for me.
Helene?
I would give it a 9. I thought it was well written, very meaningful, and piggybacking on, I think what Margie said, the Tequila, giving back and in the face of danger and hardship was very nice. So I give it a 9.
Diana?
I give it an 8. There were, as you said, some things where you say, really? What moved me among all the other things that have been mentioned, as at the end where they're at the sculpture of 191 birds in the shape of an airplane pointing up, and I got very choked up at the symbolism. That was very good for me, but it was a good book.
Elaine?
I enjoyed the book. I thought it was very good. I would give it a 9. And I did like the ending because I thought that she wrapped it up a lot nicer than a lot of books where it seems like they rushed to wrap it up, and I didn't feel that she did it that way.
Enid and then Lori.
I'll give it a 9. I think that the title was very appropriate. Sometimes you read a book and you can't figure out what the meaning of the title is. And I think that that this was right on target.
Laurie?
I would give it an 8. When I first started it, I thought it was going to be a real downer, and I wasn't ready for a downer book, but it wasn't. I think it was well written, it was interesting, and it's a perfect book club book. Thank you for whoever.
Donna and then Audrey.
My friend started the book and she couldn't read it because she felt that it was going to be a downer, like Lori just said. And I was telling her how wonderful the book was. Not every book I read keeps me engrossed, but when I have a book that keeps me interested and engrossed, I'm very excited about that. I like the way you could see his growth, and I liked her writing style. I'd give it between an 8 and a 9.
Audrey? Audrey?
I give it a 9. I like the character development. Can you hear me?
Yes.
No. I love
Like in and out.
character.
Like freezing.
I think we've lost you, but we got the 9.
I'm sorry.
I think
I'll chat. Good.
Okay, we're going to go on to Francine and then Libby. Fran, you're up. Jan, you're unmuted already.
Oh, me? I didn't hear my name. Yeah, no. I like the book. I think she told a difficult story insightfully and effectively. I like the way she structured the telling of the story, going back and forth. And I like the ending very much because it was positive, which you need when you have a book like that. I would give it a 9.
Okay, Libby and then Denise.
Well, I don't always rate books easily. It's hard to pick a number. It's kind of like when you go to a doctor and the doctor says, give your pain a number.
Yeah.
Either it's good or it's bad. I think the book was extremely well written. She is truly a craftsman. One word flowed into another. I didn't have to reread things unless I thought that whatever she said was so good that I wanted to savor the meaning again. I'll give it a 9, not a 10, because it was not a happy premise. But I think based on the fact that the reading was so good and I could identify with a lot of characters, and it redeemed itself with a good, uplifting ending.
Thank you, Denise.
I already went. I said I would give
Oh,
it
yes,
an
you
8
did.
and a
I'm
half or
sorry.
9.
You're in my line. Yes,
Yeah.
you did. Sorry.
That's all right.
Pam and then Nancy.
Okay, I would give it a 9. As I said at the beginning, I was almost going to be apologetic for having a book that had so much death, but as you read through it, and it's really a book of growth and maturity and dealing with a terrible tragedy and having goodness come because of the people surrounding you with love and caring. I thought it was a well-written book. You could see little incorporations of her personality put into some of the characters. And I'm glad that I read it. If I had known that it was going to be a book filled with alternate chapters of death, I don't know whether I would have recommended it. I would have had to ask my friends more about the book because, we do read a lot of varied types of novels in this book club. So this is something a little different. So I'm glad you all came and you seem to enjoy the book, and I thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
Nancy?
I'm going to give it an 8, 8.5. I found it very engrossing, an easy read. And I think it had a lot of good lessons underlined. And I love the relationship between Edward and Shay. I enjoyed the characters and some of them with their weirdnesses. I liked it. I recommend it. And you did a great job.
A lot
Libby
of
and
strange
Pam, you did a
people
great
make
job.
up the world.
Thank you. Shelley and then Harriet. Shelley, do you hear me? Okay, I don't know, but if Shelley, at some point, if you hear me and you want to.
I hear you. I hear you. I agree with the discussion about the characterization and the growth and development of the character, and dear Edward relating to the letters that he was so engrossed with. I would give it a 9 as well. And the discussion and the narrators, I thank you. You did an amazing job as always. And I love the discussions. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley.
Okay. Eileen?
Can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Ann. I think I'm not on this picture on the screen sharing,
Oh, we
but
see
it doesn't
you.
matter.
You are.
We see you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would give it I just want to tell you, I would give it a 9, and I enjoyed it. And I sort of related when, well, not just the people writing letters, I didn't agree with what they said, but I liked Gary, Linda's almost fiance, the one in with the
Oh, yeah,
whales.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yes.
he came, but I could understand, he came to see him. He actually drove there. Didn't he meet him in his
Right.
schoolyard or something?
Yes.
Yeah, and I
Yes,
sort of
it is.
understood how he wanted to have actual contact with someone who might have seen his girlfriend, the last person to have seen her alive. And I just found that very touching for some reason. And I thought, I like the ending as well because I like happy endings, and I think it wasn't just gratuitous. I thought it really made sense to me how he developed, and I felt he deserved a happy life eventually.
Thank you. Okay, back to Harriet and then Andrea.
Pam and Libby, fantastic job. Bravo, kudos, excellent.
Thank you.
And I wanted to say I would give it an 8.5. I thought the storylines were great. The only thing that I reread were lines that I thought were very powerful, and it really flowed. I loved the way she wrote. I loved the way she unfolded the characters. It just was great. I enjoyed it. But 8.5 is because I wasn't like going to run out and tell everybody to read the book. I don't
Book about death.
So,
there's one thing I wanted to say. I read something, when you talk about the title, Dear Edward represents writing a letter to Edward. But
Right.
there was something else that she thought of, that he was a dear Edward, like lovely Edward dear as an
Sweet boy.
adjective.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it could be used in both ways.
Thank you. Andrea and then Bonnie Cohen. We can't hear you, Andrea. You're muted.
Got it?
Got
Okay, terrific. Or my dog was barking before, that was why. Okay, so I really like the book. Thank you, Pam and Libby, for your excellent book club today. I really like the book. I like the way that you wrote. I don't think the book was morbid in any way. I really don't, even though it was about death. I would recommend this book. I would tell people to read it. I don't think there was anything wrong with it, even though the subject matter was, and it was a really good book club book because it really gave good discussion. So thank you so much, and looking forward to the next book. Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, but I would give it a 9.
Thank you, Andrea. Bonnie, and then Margie.
Yeah. I enjoyed the book. It was very interesting. There was a lot to think about. I would give it a 9. And the style was easy reading. Wasn't difficult to keep going. In fact, I finished it way too early. I finished it a week before the book club. Yes, I gave it a 9. Thank you.
Margie?
Excellent discussion.
I would give it a 9. I like Sue Lukoski said, I was waiting, is this kid going to get any counseling? I was waiting for that part to come. I don't think all the parts were realistic, but I thought it was a good read. It kept my interest, and I didn't fall asleep when I read it, so this is good. So, yeah. Oh, half the time I nod off because I don't know, the writing style doesn't interest me, but I do like her writing style. And I thought it was a good book.
Okay, Anna? You're muted.
First of all, I wanted to say good job on the leadership on this. And second thing I want to say is I didn't finish the book. And the third thing is I just wanted to, because I was thinking about my cousin's son, Sean Lang. He was 19. It was a year before this crash occurred in 2010. So it was 2009. And it has so many far-reaching effects for many, many years. Life was taken. So I just wanted to honor Sean.
Thank you, Anna. Rona and Iris, I don't know if either one of you are still here or would like to comment, but if you want to, Rona or Iris, feel free. I know Rona's not feeling so good, so. While they're deciding, I initially found the book like horrendously depressing. And I had trouble getting over that because it wasn't just Edward and his family, it was so many lives. And it happened again. I mean, with the accident, where was that? The accident with the ski lift there that was just happened where
In Italy.
in Italy, thank you, where a whole Israeli family, except for one son, who was still in critical condition, were killed. And it's just, I don't know, I found that really hard. But the book is well written. I guess I would have given it a 7, but that's maybe has more to do with my mental state than the book itself, which I did feel was well written. Does anybody have any other comments? Lori?
Book that they're going to do from Hadassah in Philadelphia, Becoming Eve. That's Thursday. I just finished reading this yesterday. It's the Hasidic man that always felt that he was a girl and was transgender. It's an interesting book. It's not what I thought it was going to be. It really talks about religion and how there's things in the Talmud and the Torah and the difference between the Hasidic closed community and the Jewish community that has accepted her. I think that you would not have to read the book to listen to the discussion. It's $18. It supports Hadassah. Thursday, I think it's June 3rd, next Thursday. And the book, I got it from the library. In fact, I requested it both from Huntington Valley and from Philadelphia. They both came it in, and I gave the other copy to a friend to read. Quick read. And after, if you hear the speaker and you're interested in reading the book, which you probably won't have to, I'm sure it will be easy to get.
Thank you for mentioning that. Margie, did you want to mention the other program?
Oh, the next one is, what did Glenn, the next month, it's.
No, I didn't mean that. I meant the Hadassah program that you
Oh,
were.
the Hadassah program, that's what Lori was just talking about. It's about this Abby Stein. Her name is now Abby Stein. It was, I don't even know what it was. But anyhow, this is a woman who was an Orthodox Satmar rabbi, correct, Lori? And
So is this the same person?
yes, that's what she's talking about. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't realize.
So everybody come listen to it. I mean, supposedly she's a great speaker. You can listen to her on YouTube and all.
Yeah, she does have YouTube. I also read the book a while ago, and I have listened to her YouTube things, and she's very interesting.
What's the date and the time?
Next Thursday at
The
7.
first Thursday in June, June 3rd. June 3rd, and it's at 7 o'clock at night.
Right. And you have to register for you know, the link.
Are you getting emails from Greater Philadelphia, everybody, or have you unsubscribed to them?
Yeah, an email just came through yesterday about it.
Right.
I
but
didn't
you
get
have to
that
subscribe.
email.
If anybody wants it, I will forward it on to you. Just email me. But you have to be have not canceled your Philadelphia Hadassah subscription.
Yeah, see, if you unsubscribe, then you're not going to get it.
Fran, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just before we lose any more people, our next meeting is going to be June 15th at 11 o'clock. The Book of Lost Threads by Lisa Wingate, Helene Grossman, and Ann Schwartz are going to be presenting.
Thank you.
Could you say that date again?
June 15th, Tuesday,
Okay.
June 15th.
June 15th.
Is that the third Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay.
First,
third
the
Tuesday
first,
of
this
the
coming
month.
Tuesday is the first, then the 8th is the second, and the 15th is the third.
Right. Okay.
At 11 o'clock.
At 11 o'clock.
Margie, do you want to talk about the next
So it's
regular meeting?
June
What's
8th.
the name of that book, The Book of Lost Friends?
Yes, by Lisa Wingate.
Thank you.
What's the name?
That Rabbi Glenn Edmond, who was Sue Lukoski's son-in-law is going to talk about the Jews in theater, Broadway. So come listen.
That should be interesting.
Yeah.
What
Lori?
time?
Can I say something that when we picked last year, and I think we sent out names of books ahead of time, I think that's real helpful to help us know what we might like to read for next year, that if we could do that again, send in what we think. And I know today's presenter said that she felt that she had to lead the discussion. I don't think that that's necessarily a rule. Some
It's
people
not.
are
No.
some people are comfortable of leading a discussion, and other people are not. And don't be afraid to, if you're don't want to be a leader, that doesn't mean that you haven't read something great that somebody else would be more than happy to help present.
Right. We're still determining the format of our book club selection, which is usually a luncheon. So we're still determining how we're going to do that. Last year we did it via Zoom, of course. And so we will see how that shapes up, and we'll let you know.
I
We're
just
trying
want
to
to
make
say
it more
one thing.
personal this time.
I didn't mean to make people feel that I was coerced in doing it. I ran the book club here in the Villas of Newtown for 5 years. And, I was a teacher. And so you have a different feeling than some of the other residents and participants in our Villas of Newtown book club. And one would say to me, "Oh, if you ever ask me that I have to read a book, I'm quitting." I said, "No, because I do know that people are uncomfortable. The only thing is, like, we would go around in a circle at the end. What you people do is just add a final comment that you wanted to share, even if you hadn't. And then if you want, you can rate the book." I never want anyone to feel that I was coerced.
Pam,
You're
everyone
into it.
loved you. You did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, it was excellent. Really very well done.
Thank you, Libby, and thank you, Pam, because it really was. It showed you did a lot of work. So thank you both.
We didn't want to bring in, there was one topic we had, it had to do with the irony of the story of the passengers. This one wanted to start a new life. This one was going to get a treatment, that was a trial to maybe make him be cured of the cancer, so these were such downers because everyone's looking forward to something and life ends on a dime at times, or
Which I think is what really bothered me.
tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't bring it up, because that's what got to me, because you're introduced to these people and they have all this potential, and then sad.
And a plane trip was almost symbolic of things of that sort, because it's an adventure. You're going someplace, usually a distance, and you're looking forward to it. And there's been so much preparation and anticipation.
Now I have a quick question for you ladies. I started to read the Lisa Wingate book, and I'm realizing there's a lot of people and a lot of names. I don't know, perhaps I should have just jotted down some of the names. I only read 100 pages of it, so I'm liking it, but it's a little confusing because I haven't gotten into all the names of all the people from the past and what they call the present, the 1980s. So has anybody finished it?
Yes.
It all fits together a little bit more easily as I go through now, hopefully.
I found it excellent. I mean, at the end, I couldn't put the book down. I had to get to the end of the book. So
Okay, that'll keep me going.
All right, well, I thank you all.
Next month.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Good night. Good
Bye.
day.
Thank you.
Thank
Good rest of the day.
Bye.